Well, we've gone over the evidence of controlled demolition in all three of the towers, and not just the eyewitnesses, but the scientific evidence. But can you recap the last 6 months since you were on with us? What has happened with NIST? NIST having to go back on their previous reports, and where the scientific investigation is right now.
Yes. Well, NIST came out with their draft report of World Trade Center 7, the third high-rise that came down, not hit by an airplane, came down in the afternoon, about 5:20 on 9/11. And we'll talk about how it came down. But 7 years later, finally, we have a draft report in August in which they try to document that it was 40% of gravity that the building came down. Now, upon questions by physicist David Chandler and scientist Dr. Stephen Jones, they publicly had to backtrack and fumble their way through the conference. And in their final report, which just came out in November last month, they acknowledge that in the first 2.25 seconds, this 47-story building drops at free fall speed, which is 8 stories. Now, prior to this, in August, they said publicly that it couldn't have fallen free fall speed because had it, that would mean there would have been no structure. And so now they're acknowledging free fall speed, but they're not saying, well, there must not have been structure there. In other words, what they're basically acknowledging to the 9/11 truth movement and the world is that the structure had to have been removed for those 8 stories, because a building cannot fall at free fall speed and convert all of its gravitational potential energy to kinetic energy and do any other work. It can't crush the 40,000 tons of steel that was in the building that was designed to resist any type of collapse.
And again, this was the FEMA command bunker, overbuilt for strength, CIA, FBI, Defense Intelligence, more than 20 secretive federal agencies based there, their largest section offices outside of Virginia and Maryland in the world.
Well, that was on the 23rd floor. Yes, it was a very highly secure bunker, complete with all that they needed in the way of electricity and water and backup electricity, reinforced windows against all kinds of hurricane and so forth. But all of this was abandoned on the morning of 9/11.
For Tripod 2, a terror attack drill. They had already moved out. They had already moved out the night before, most of their operations, out onto the pier, as FEMA said, because they were doing a top-off 2 drill, Tripod 2 drill for a terror attack.
Yes, we understand that there were hundreds of FEMA employees the day before 9/11 in preparation for a mock biochemical attack in downtown Manhattan, and we are wondering if that is just a coincidence or not. But the 550 architects and engineers who are demanding a real investigation do try to stick with the technical evidence. We're not conspiracy theorists, so we really do want others to investigate these matters, and we're glad that you're one of them.
Let's talk about that matter next, of the 550 and now a year and a half joining your group and how it's growing exponentially. But before we go there, I'm not an architect, I'm not an engineer. But, this is the main show that brought out the Building 7 controversy day one. I remember hearing the news as I was driving in my car back to the studio saying they're going to bring Building 7 down. The Solomon brothers, they're going to have a controlled demolition so it doesn't damage other buildings. Other people remember those reports, the false reports, BBC, Fox, CNN reporting it had fallen before it fell. But I wanted to be specific here, watching what NIST has said. First, they said free fall's impossible because that would have to be explosives. Only explosives can, do that, because as it falls, it takes time to crush, the next level. And, the basic science shows that. But we have footage now of the entire building falling. They love to show a video from, a mile away with a building in the way where you only see the first, 25 stories or so, because the other 20-something stories are below the field of view. But in the other videos, we've timed it, and, it is falling in a little more than 6 seconds. I mean, you can take your watch, you can time it, And, that's how fast it falls. So even NIST now backing off and saying, okay, for a few seconds it was at free fall, it looks as if that is another deception.
I don't follow you. They acknowledge the free fall, but they certainly are being deceptive about the implications of that.
Well, not just that. They're saying that the free fall was only partial. But when I watch the videos, it's a continual free fall, not just of 8 stories, but 47.
Oh, yeah. No, it actually does slow down. I encourage your listeners to look at the 10-minute video.
That's as it's piling up at the bottom.
Yeah, it begins to slow down after about 2.5 seconds, just slightly. It is almost free fall for the next 2-3 seconds, and then it slows down a little bit more. So it is very close to free fall all the way down.
But you would expect that as it actually did meet resistance. They blow the floors out, it falls in on the rubble, and then you finally do have some slowing.
Yes, they're counting on the weight of the building to be harnessed to do most of the destruction. So we have witnesses who have heard explosions at the base of the building, presumably those lower 8 floors. We don't really know. A real investigation would get at the heart of this and also to how they might have planted such explosives. But we do know that the lobby, they had access to the lobby, which is not occupied. They had access to the 5th and 6th floor, which is mechanical floors, complete access. And through the elevator shafts, they could have had access to the entire core structure of the building without being detected by
it was a spook
employees.
facility. Well, we're going to break and come back, and then I'm going to attempt to give you the floor. There's just so many issues I want to bring up here with Richard Gage, the founder of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, over 500 members now and growing of structural engineers and architects. A very, very powerful group of accredited men and women that cannot be ignored. And we'll talk about the deceptions in the NIST reports and why they've been so deceptive and why they claim there was no molten metal when the government's own studies and their own photographs admit there was molten metal. Stay with us. We are back live with Richard Gage. Okay, not wasting any time. Richard, continue with NIST and their deceptions. For those that don't know who NIST is, you might want to tell them who they are. And then I want you to spend some more time on the explosive growth and the published papers, peer-reviewed by architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth.
Yes, we have NIST. So acknowledging free fall, we were asking all of your listeners to write letters to the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and mostly to government officials and media officials, highlighting the dichotomy of what they're saying on the one hand and what they're not saying on the other. That this could only have been by explosive controlled demolition. It's critical that we get a real investigation, and we're asking also all of your listeners to email every architect and engineer they can find, and with the link to the video that documents this deception on the part of NIST. And the video can be found on YouTube at our account, which is AE911 Truth. So go to YouTube and look for AE911 Truth. You'll see a listing of our videos. The most prominent one that's received 20,000 hits is this physics professor, David Chandler, who in this 10-minute video documents this. It's really important.